It's episode 97 of Unstuck, and in today's best of episode, we're taking it back to episode 70 and talking about what to do when negative emotions lower your vibe. So, stay tuned. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to Unstuck. I'm Shawn, your host on each and every episode, and we are working our way to episode 100. And in celebration of that, to lead our way up to that, we're taking a little trip down memory lane in these 5 episodes and doing best of episodes. These are all hand-selected by me, really because of you, based on the amount of downloads, the amount of excitement, the amount of talk, the amount of listens and shares that these episodes have gotten. And I think today's might be the number one, might be the all-time most downloaded episode of Unstuck, at least at the time of this recording. And it's about negative emotion lowering your vibe. And I think we can all agree as to why this would be the most downloaded, most addressed topic on the show so far, because we all have those moments where we have these negative emotions, these unwanted feelings and emotions that take over us. And a lot of us, if we're working on getting into alignment and being an energetic match for what we want, what we desire, then that doesn't match up, and we get worried that it's going to negatively impact our vibration, our energetic expression. So that's what this episode is all about. I just want to remind you before we get into it that if you are loving the work we do on Unstuck, if you love these conversations, and if you know someone that it would benefit, please share these episodes. You can text them, you can email them, you can talk about it, whatever works for you. But share the love with a friend, a family member, a loved one. And if you don't know of anyone specifically, but you do want to help spread the love of this show, first of all, thank you so much. So grateful for that. You can also leave a review for the show and just put in a brief little 2-second comment about what you're loving and why, and it will help spread the word, spread the message of what we do here to the whole world, to anyone, anywhere in this world, and really spread the love that way. So thank you all so much. And now, without further ado, let's head back to episode 70, what to do when negative emotions lower your vibe. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to the Unstuck podcast. I'm Shawn, your host, each and every episode of Unstuck, and I'm also the one that is always so grateful every time you tune into the show and we get to connect. It means the world to me. So thank you all so much for being here. Today, I'm going to answer one specific listener question for you all. And really, this is kind of coming at a good time where we all, I think, need to be reminded of what we're going to talk about today. When we have these negative emotions that last longer than an hour or a day or a week, but we have these kind of chronic underlying negative emotions that are coming up for us as we're trying to deal with things and process things and essentially trying to get our vibration elevated, trying to raise our frequency, but in the process feel like we're being pulled down and we're lowering our frequency, lowering our vibration. What do we do in this situation? That's what we're going to talk about today, something that we have talked about in past episodes. So you will notice this is more so a reminder episode, something that we need to be reminded of. It's not one of those things where we listen to it once and we just get it. This is something that requires us to constantly go back to. And that's why I'm dedicating an episode to this particular topic at this particular time. Before we get into it any further, I want to let you know there's been a little bit of a change in my schedule for the rest of 2020 going into 2021. I mentioned before that I will be inviting a new group of entrepreneurs into my new program in November. So we are now in November. That would be right now. And it just did not feel right. It felt like it was too rushed. I'm still working with the current group very deeply, and I wanted to give more time for all of us. So that is now being pushed back to January. So I will be inviting wellness entrepreneurs who are ready to start their business, grow their business, create a new business or a new wing to their business, whatever it is in the wellness space. You will be invited into a new group. This is the most amazing thing I've ever done. I can't even explain what it is besides just calling it a program, because it's not a course. Well, it's not just a course. It's not just a mentorship, and it's not just a community. It's all of it. And it's so powerful and profound, and just the group is amazing, and I can't wait for more people to join the group, and that will happen in January. So if you are someone who wants to be a part of that group and really get your business off the ground in 2021, I think 2020 really showed us how important it is for us to take charge of our own lives and our own income and our own passions and purpose. If 2021 is the year you're going to do that, then make sure you get on the wait list for Unstuck Entrepreneur January group. You can do that over at shawnmynar.com/unstuckbiz. That's coming up in January. But I have also realized that what we really need right now, and what this really is a good time to take part in, is to get unstuck when it comes to your life, your health, your diet, your body, these things that we talk about here a lot on the Unstuck podcast, and is really the basis of the Unstuck project, which is my signature flagship Unstuck course. And that is really focused on uncovering and undoing and building awareness and creating a new mental program and emotional program and spiritual program when it comes to your health, your diet, your body, all of these emotions and thoughts and beliefs that we have about our physicalness. That is something that needs to really happen now, before the holidays, before the first of the year. This is very much the time where we start getting all up in our heads about what we can and cannot eat, how we should or should not look, what diet we do or do not need to follow. If we can get a hold of all of that and dive into all of that before this season, then we can come out of it with a whole new outlook, a whole new idea around our bodies and health and food, and really just making better choices for ourselves without all of this mental work. It just happens naturally. And that's what I really want to help you all do before we get into the holiday season, which is very quickly approaching. I don't even know how that happened, but it's almost here. So I will be doing a 2-day only, 2 days. That's all you get. Super special. It's kind of like, I won't be doing anything for Black Friday, but you can think of it as like a pre-Black Friday deal. And it's happening next week. You have 2 days next week to get on your Unstuck plan at an investment that has never happened, will never happen again. The lowest investment ever for the Unstuck project, which is an 8-week online self-study course. And it needs to be self-study. You will understand why it's a self-study once you get in, because it is very much an inner work type of course. And so you can jumpstart that 2 days next week. So if you want to get in on that, you can head to shawnmynar.com/unstuck. Get on the wait list. You will be the first person notified when that 2-day pre-Black Friday sale. That sounds so weird. I'm not really into that kind of stuff these days, but hey, we'll just go with it, I guess. You can get in on that next week. So be sure to get on that list so you don't miss it. All right. Now let's get into today's episode. I sent over an Instagram story last week asking for listener questions so I could do a little Q&A episode. Well, I got some really great questions, and in fact, they were so good that many of them deserve their own episode, including this one today. So over the next few weeks to few months, I'll be taking these questions that I got straight from you listeners and dedicating a full episode to really dive into each topic and answer each question. And we'll start today with this one. I'm just going to read a little bit. I'm going to keep it. This was actually a direct message I got in my Instagram, which I love reading all of your direct messages that I get over there. So please feel free to DM me at Shawn Mynar on Instagram if you are a listener, if you just want to check in, if you want to let me know what you're going through. It really does help me guide the direction of this show for sure too. Like this was a direct message, and then she kind of was talking about what she was going through, and I realized it was a good time to have this as a podcast episode. So here we are. I will keep the listener anonymous, but she says, just wanted to say finding your podcast was exactly what I needed during not only a time of spiritual growth and awakening, but also some pretty rare physical health issues brought on by nervous system trauma. This podcast has helped me so much, and I listen to it almost every morning with my coffee. Right now, I am struggling with keeping my vibration high while my nervous system is purging and processing large amounts of trauma, causing me to feel negative emotions and have negative thoughts. And then she goes on to say, I know you've addressed this in other podcast episodes, but just thought it was something that could be addressed another time when it feels good for you, kind of thing. And I thought it felt like a really good time to readdress this topic of negative emotions, not just for people like this listener who are dealing with negative emotions as it relates to trauma, but also for those of us. We all are experiencing our fair share of negative emotions. I think this year in 2020 with COVID for me, and I know a lot of people in the US, the fires were something that was really depressing and scary, and that's all something in addition that we're dealing with. And then there's also the presidential election, which has caused a lot of division and worry and fear and anger and just literally all the emotions. And I'm recording this the day before we find out who in the US our president is for the next 4 years. And there's a lot of tension going on right now. When you guys listen to this, we will know who our president is, and no matter what decision is made, there will be negative emotion that comes along with that decision. So that's happening. And, for me, I think because of the fires too, and just also environmental issues that are going on that have really come to a head for me and caused a little bit of negative emotion around that and wanting to do more and not knowing what to do and not knowing how we can change this situation that we're in, and how obvious it is that our planet is in big trouble. And it's just a lot. So here we are starting this podcast episode on just a real dark foot, but we're going to turn it around. In this episode, let's start with a quote from the great Gretchen Rubin, which if you don't know who she is, she's really just kind of almost like the headmaster of happiness is how I like to think of her. But she has this to say: negative emotion has an important role to play in a happy life. They're big, flashing signs that something needs to change. That is how I want you to think of negative emotion. Really, one of the ways I want you to think of negative emotion is just a sign. It's simply a sign showing you that you're out of alignment, that your soul and your mind connection is really disconnected. And we'll dive into that concept in a little bit. But it's this sign that something needs to change, that something is off. And that is what we're going to talk about today. By the way, we're going to be talking about vibration a lot here on this episode. So if you haven't listened to episode 3, which is how to raise your vibration and why you need to, go back and make sure to listen to that. You can do it now, or you can wait until after this episode, and it will kind of all come together when you go through that episode. And no matter what, whether you've listened to that episode or not, if you haven't yet downloaded the emotional frequency scale, you're going to want to have it handy for this episode and really for every episode of Unstuck, it seems like. So make sure you head to shawnmynar.com/scale to get that and have it handy. When we go through this episode, I want to use a different term than negative emotion. And really, I want to kind of scrap that from my vocabulary altogether, because it gives the connotation, of course, that it's negative, bad, unwanted. You shouldn't go there. You shouldn't feel that, not good. And that's why we have so many conversations about negative emotion here, because it's that belief that those emotions shouldn't be felt and you shouldn't have them and they're wrong and they're bad that keeps us stuck. And so I think instead, I'll try it on this episode and see how it feels. You guys let me know if you like this instead. I'm going to give high vibe emotions and low vibe emotions a try. Now, the main takeaway for today, if this is the only thing you actually get out of this episode, let it be this. Negative, low vibe emotions are actually good. They are good. It's good that this listener can feel those and see those and even recognize the thoughts that she's having because of the situation that she's in. It's all part of the process, because all emotions are good and all emotions are necessary and all emotions are going to happen. And when you can actually recognize that you're having that emotion, you're thinking those thoughts. Well, as we know, because of the Unstuck framework that I've created, awareness is the very first step. So that means you have built awareness. You are actually engaging in your life enough to know, hey, I'm thinking these negative thoughts and I'm having these negative emotions. And in this listener's case, it's actually part of this release of trauma that I'm experiencing, and my nervous system is really in this process of healing and restoring itself. And so this is all happening. And when you can see how clearly it is part of that process, then you can see also how necessary it is. Because if you don't release those emotions, if you don't ever feel them, and if you try to stuff them away, shove them down, don't bring awareness to them, well, then you stay stuck. And you can pretend all you want that you're happy, that you love yourself, that you're fulfilled, but it's not the truth. It's not reality. That is not your actual vibration, because you still have that negative emotion tucked away. So feeling negative emotion is an essential part of the process to raising your vibration. And that is one of the many things we talk about here on Unstuck. And one of the many goals we have to get unstuck is to raise your vibration. But if you're stuffing or ignoring negative emotion, that's really the surest way to stay stuck, to stay low vibe, to be unable to raise your vibration, and you end up just faking it. Your subconscious mind knows the true emotions that you're holding on to and the beliefs that cause those emotions, the thoughts that cause those emotions. Your subconscious mind is holding on to that and will hold on to that until it is worked through. And physically, your body will literally hold on to that emotion within your tissues. So you can try to ignore it. You can try to stuff it, pretend it's not there, pretend you're happy and everything's fine. But your subconscious mind knows the truth and your physical body knows the truth. And that is where we just can't get away with faking our vibration for very long. So as you can see, what we don't want to do is ignore, stuff, pretend, or fake our negative or low vibe, which I'm now going to call it for the remainder. I'll probably catch myself again, but I'm going to call it low vibe emotion. Ideally, we are expressing that emotion. We are feeling through that emotion. We are acknowledging that that emotion is even there. And when we can do all that, then we can actually move through it. We can move beyond it. We can leave it behind because it's almost like it kind of fizzles away as you go through the process of expressing, feeling, acknowledging, building awareness, and doing what you need to do to really, truly feel it. And then, and only then, can you organically work your way up the emotional frequency scale and raise your vibration. Now, I do want to point out one thing, and I think if we're looking at this listener's case in particular, she's now at the point where she has been able to, I guess what happens is your subconscious mind feels it's safe enough to bring up this past trauma. And it sounds to me, I don't know her story. I don't know who she's working with. I don't know what's going on, but it sounds to me from what I read, that I just read you guys, that she has had some past trauma that she has been storing. And now it's all coming about. It caused some major nervous system issues, sounds like maybe some physical issues as well. And now it's all coming to the surface and she's processing it. And in that processing of it, bringing up some low vibe emotion and low vibe thought. And this is where the challenge really comes up because there are some people, actually more people than we even realize, I even realized, I'll speak for myself here. I realized until starting the Unstuck podcast and working with people in the Unstuck Project and Unstuck Entrepreneur who have low vibe emotions from past experiences, but the subconscious mind is in protection mode. So there is past trauma, there's past negative emotion that is being so deeply stored within you that you may not even remember it. Or you may know you have like kind of chronic low vibe emotion and just like this one thing you can't seem to get rid of, like this feeling of guilt or fear or shame that you're like, I kind of have this underlying feeling like that's going on, but I don't know why. That could be a reason too. That could be a situation too. Or maybe you have past trauma that you actually remember. You remember it. You know you experienced it, but you feel disconnected from the emotion that came with it. These are all ways, those three scenarios where you don't remember it, or you feel that emotion, but you don't know why, or you remember the trauma, but you don't feel that emotion connected to it. Those are all ways that your subconscious mind protects you, because that's the entire reason for our subconscious mind. That's its sole goal, is to protect and keep us safe. And so those situations that may have caused, and we'll call them trauma, those traumatic situations, they were not a safe environment for you at that time, and perhaps even now. And so your subconscious mind is still in protection mode, so you can't truly process it. And that's where I see a lot of stuckness coming from, especially with people who are like, I'm still stuck and I feel like I'm doing all of this and I feel like I'm thinking through my thoughts and my beliefs and I feel like I'm building awareness and all these things we talk about, but I'm still stuck. And it's because your subconscious mind needs to know that it is safe for you to go back to that situation, go back to that trauma and actually deal with it. And that's where working with someone who is a professional. A therapist can help you uncover that. An NLP practitioner, which I soon will be. Very excited for that. I've been working at it every little chance I get during the weekend and specific days of the week. I have it blocked off to study. But neuro-linguistic programming is something I'm becoming certified in very soon, and I'm learning specific tools that I can help you use to bypass the conscious mind and tap into that subconscious mind and let it know that it's safe and let it know that you don't need protection anymore and that it is okay to bring these emotions up so that we can release them. It's very cool stuff, but things that NLP practitioners can do, therapists can help you with, but I would definitely recommend seeking out professional help if you feel like you're still staying kind of surface level, we'll call it, with your awareness. If you kind of know there may be more to dig into, and that's when we really, truly can release it all. And like I said, kind of organically move our way into a higher vibe, which is what we're really after here. So that is one scenario. Another scenario would be that you just have some low vibe emotions hanging out right now, be it because of COVID and trying to quarantine and trying to keep your kids safe and trying to have homeschooling and distance learning or whatever your situation may be, or maybe this election season has really heightened your emotions, maybe caused some fatigue. I think all of us are kind of election fatigue, no matter which end of the spectrum you are on. And it's time now to express those. It's time now to release those. Does that mean that you're never going to feel any of these emotions again? Of course not. You may express them and then a week later feel them again, because that's just the season that we're in, where we're all learning more about our emotions because they're all becoming a little bit more heightened. And this is a really good thing to come out of 2020. So think about it. Have you ever felt mad, sad, frustrated, annoyed, all the things, and actually just let it out? Like you actually just cried. You actually just yelled. You actually just vented to your bestie or your partner. And when you did that, you immediately felt better. Like, I don't think anyone can deny that when you are sad or frustrated, for me, it's frustration. When I'm frustrated, I cry. And then when I'm done crying, I'm fine. My frustration is gone and I can actually go back and tackle whatever situation is frustrating me. It's just proof of the power of feeling our emotions. And this goes for that acute low vibe place where someone cuts you off or you have a fight with your partner or your boss makes you mad, something like that. Feel it. But then also the case for a more chronic low vibe place where our listener finds herself in, and I know a lot of you find yourself in, you have to feel it. And you're not going to feel that negative, caught myself, low vibe emotion as long as you have been hiding it or as long as you have been not dealing with it. So the sooner you fully embrace it and embrace that process, the quicker you can move through it. Now, in these cases of kind of this acute low vibe place where a lot of us are finding ourselves in, I have to just bring up the usual, the things I always tell you and recommend you guys do on a regular basis. But specifically, if you are feeling all kinds of low vibe, head to your journal, just write it out. Write out those negative thoughts that are creeping in. Let yourself name what you're feeling and why, instead of just being like, I feel crappy, I'm feeling negative. Figure out what it is. And we'll talk more about that coming up. But journaling, amazing. Nature, amazing. Again, no one's ever walked out of the woods feeling more negative than they came in. You just don't. It's just not possible. So get in involved in nature in any way that you can. Meditate, my go-to. Definitely just try it. If you are still not meditating and listening to the Unstuck podcast, maybe now's the time to give it a go. Sleep. A lot of times I just need to sleep it off, and I wake up and I'm like, oh, well, here, this feels better, or here's the answer, or now I know why I was stressed out, or whatever. Talk to someone. Always talking it out never hurts. Cry, punch a pillow, yell, scream into a pillow, whatever you need to do. Just don't hurt another person. Don't hurt yourself. Whatever you need to do beyond that to feel those emotions, to really express it, will immediately make you feel better. And the more you acknowledge it and the more you let yourself do that, especially in this time where it's like you do it, you feel something, you express it, and you feel better. And then a week later, something else happens and you're back where you were, and now you have to express it again. And it will continue to compile and build and snowball until you let yourself feel it every single time. Every single time. Let yourself feel it. So let's move on now to this more chronic negative state, because I do think that's where some of us are finding ourselves right now. And including this listener, I want to make sure to get specifically into that. I would say chronic would be when it's more than like a few days or few weeks. If you are chronically stressed, chronically sad, chronically angry, chronically feeling shame or embarrassment, chronically annoyed, frustrated, whatever it is, beyond, a few weeks, I would say that's a more chronic place that might be coming again from this place that you haven't really gone yet within you, within your mind. And it could be a case where your subconscious isn't letting you yet, and you do need to bypass that and let it know it's okay to express this. All right, so I have a list of, 9 or 10 do's and don'ts to go through if you are experiencing chronic low vibe-ness. The first thing is you have to do something. You just got to do something. Your primary goal each and every day should be to do something that can help you work through these emotions. It's up to you to decide what that is. Explore, experiment, figure out what really feels good for you. I've mentioned some just a little bit ago: meditating, moving, nature, sleeping, talking to someone, whatever it is. That is up to you to decide. You can try some things and see what really does help you feel a little better, does help you move through those emotions and express them, and do that. But really make it a priority. It should be on your to-do list every day to do something, whether it's a 2-minute meditation, if that's all you can do, or you can spend an hour with a therapist or with a practitioner working through those emotions. The next, do be grateful for those moments that feel a little better. So say you do meditate for 15 minutes and you come out of your meditation and you do actually feel better. You do feel relief. You do feel like you've been able to release some of that. Then be grateful for that. Be grateful for those moments that feel just a little better. Simply being grateful will automatically multiply those moments. And you'll notice more and more moments of that better feeling, of that sense of relief. They will multiply if you find gratitude for them. Like I said, do get help from a professional. If you are experiencing this place of chronic low vibeness, talk to someone who does this for a living and get help. It really does help to have someone else work through this with you. My next do examine your thoughts. Remember, thoughts breed emotions. So the reason that you are feeling that emotion is because there's a thought behind it that got you there. And behind that thought is a belief. So if we can really work to build that curiosity and build that awareness to not only be able to acknowledge, yes, I'm feeling this thing, but then also what's behind that? Why am I feeling that thing? And then why am I having that thought? And see if you can really create a system where what we do really when we are looking at those thoughts and beliefs is we're kind of calling BS a little bit, because we're like, well, those thoughts, they're not actually true. I'm actually the thinker of my thoughts. I'm choosing to think this, but no, they're not true, which is quite often the case. Not 100% of the time, but often the case. And when we can start doing that and creating some unraveling, then we have this system to where that emotion doesn't have quite the strength, because that thought doesn't have quite the strength and the belief doesn't have quite the strength, until we get to a point where we're totally free of it. So that's what we're trying to do, is create a little bit of that system around it. Next up, do respect the process. Know that you are on the right path when you are feeling these feelings. This is what I don't want to happen, is that you feel anger and then you feel mad at yourself for feeling anger, and then you feel ashamed for feeling anger. That's what we don't want to do, is bring up a negative emotion or a negative thought or feeling or belief or whatever it is because we are having negative emotions. So please know that this is part of the process. You are on the right path and you are doing the right thing to get your vibration to naturally become higher instead of faking it, which is what we do if we don't acknowledge and release negative emotion. Next, do name it. See if you can figure out what that emotion is. So instead of just saying, I'm feeling crappy, I'm having a low vibe, negative thing going on, I just don't feel like myself today, whatever it is, see if you can figure out and kind of be the little detective to what your emotion is. Is it anger? Is it sadness? Is it shame? Is it anxiety? Is it a combination of several different emotions? Again, creating that place where you are curious, where you want to learn more about what's going on with you, will really do a lot in this situation. When you can define what that emotion is, it automatically starts the process of unraveling it or taming it. It's called name it to tame it. So see if you can give that a try. Last, do let it be your compass. As we heard about from Gretchen Rubin at the start of this show, and I told you we'd talk about it again. Remember, negative emotion is simply a sign that your mind and your soul or spirit or inner being, whatever you want to call it, are not in alignment, because your inner being is always at peace and is always coming from a place of love. So then a disconnected mind would be the one to pull you away from that peace and love, to pull you away from that constant high vibeness that you have within you. So there's something disconnected there, and all this negative emotion is really bringing you back to that point. It's pulling you in. It's being your compass to show you, I've gone off track here. My mind needs a little bit of guidance and attention to bring it back home. Let's get into just a few don'ts. Don't get mad at yourself for having low vibe thoughts and emotions. Hey, we all do. We all do. It's okay to not always be 100% positive, high vibe, happy, joyful, at peace, never stressed person. It's just not, that's not how the human experience is or will ever be. And that is okay. So please don't beat yourself up. Don't get mad at yourself when you get into these low vibe places, because now we know it's part of the process. And now we have so much awareness built around this that we just get curious. We're like, oh, here I am here. So what's the disconnect, or where is my mind going that is causing this low vibe emotion? And do I want to stay here? How can I express it? What can I do to move past this? And there we go. Don't wallow. This is the problem that we can get into, especially when it's a chronic low vibe place. Now, I'm not saying that you can't sit in your low vibeness as part of a way to deal with it, because sometimes just feeling it and sitting in it, and yeah, you know what? I'm just going to have a bad day. I'm just going to lay in bed and cry today. That's not wallowing. I do not put that in the same category as wallowing. I see wallowing when your negative, low vibe emotion becomes your identity. Like, that is how you define yourself. That is how others see you. Like, she's that girl who's always mad, or she's that girl who's always sad. That is when we are wallowing, which means we are not working to move beyond it. We are not acknowledging where we are, and we are just accepting our low vibe state as who we are and what our life is, and that's that. And this leads me to my next don't, which is don't let it become your identity. Kind of the same thing, pretty much the same thing, but I get to expand on this identity situation a little bit more. You are not depressed. You are not anxious. You are not sad. You are you. You are a soul, an inner being, a spirit. You are energy. You are working through some depression right now. You are having some anxiety right now. You're feeling sad right now. Do you guys see the difference there? It changes the identity, because we are still us, but this is also going on. But it's outside of our identity. I'm having some depression right now. I'm experiencing some anxiety. We are not depressed. We are not anxious. We are not sad, because then that brings it into our identity, whether we realize it or not. We're talking subconscious mind stuff here, and on an energetic, spiritual level as well. Okay? You are you. You can have other things going on, and then it is not your identity. Last one, don't blame. Take responsibility for the way you feel and for what you think. Yes, someone else may be the reason that that situation happened in your life that is causing you to feel and think this way, that is causing that low vibeness. That is very often the case, where there was someone else who triggered that in us. Someone else who really was to blame for that situation, and really was the creator of this trauma in your life. But we really do have to bring it back to ourselves. And this really, when we can release that blame and resentment and bring it back to ourselves and acknowledge that we are the thinker of our thoughts, we are the feeler of our emotions. And so we have to own that. It is up to us to own our own emotions and own our thoughts. And only then does it give you the power to acknowledge and accept and feel and release. And not only those thoughts and emotions, but that whole situation. And that's where we become powerful. So by not blaming and taking responsibility, we have power. And that's what we need to focus on. When you start blaming, you start putting it into the outside, we lose power. And I know it's hard because, like I said, yes, in many cases, especially with trauma, there was someone else involved. But see what you can do to bring it back to you, because that's the most important thing. All right, those are my do's and don'ts. Here's the bottom line I'll leave you with. Don't ignore those feelings. Even though they don't feel good, don't ignore them. Don't beat yourself up for having them. And know that the only way to truly, authentically find a high vibe life and a high vibe place is to work through those emotions. All emotions. All emotions are necessary. All emotions are good because it's a compass. It's a signal. It's bringing you more in alignment with yourself. It's even bringing more connection with yourself because you are actually being able to find those emotions and to acknowledge them. Like that is so huge instead of just pretending they don't exist or ignoring them or stuffing them away. So that is what we're doing here. And I hope this helped you all a little bit, whether you are feeling a little low vibe today or maybe sometime in the future. It's going to happen, people. It's part of life and that's okay. But it's what we do from that place that can really set us apart and really create a life we love. Now, your homework for this episode, whenever you're feeling a negative emotion, whether it's right now or in the future, I want you to be an investigator and see if you can figure out what that emotion is. So head to your journal and I want you to write just one sentence. And then by all means, after you write this sentence, if you still need to get it out, let it all flow out. Let the pen do the talking and just express. But the one sentence I want you to commit to is, I'm feeling blank. And I want you to put in as specifically as you can what you're feeling. So maybe it's not just stress, but maybe you realize that underneath that stress, you're actually feeling like embarrassment or pressure or fear of something happening. I want you to get as specific as you can about what you're feeling. So I'm feeling blank, and this is how I'm going to express it today. Now, like I said, it may be continuing to write. Cool. But maybe it's spending 5 minutes of meditation or taking a hot bath or heading out to dinner with a friend so you can chat about it. I want you to get a plan of action next time you're feeling low vibe. See what you can do about it. And like I mentioned, remember, if you are feeling any sort of low vibeness, whether it's chronic, like for the past 30 years, you've been feeling poorly about your body and shameful about the way you look and stressed about your diet, or just acute, like today you realized you started picking at yourself in the mirror or whatever it is. If that is you, then head to shawnmynar.com/unstuck and get on the wait list for the Unstuck Project. 2 days only. Next week, the lowest price I will ever offer. Ever have, ever will. I promise you that. You can get in, you can do it starting that day, or you can wait until the beginning of the year if you'd rather, or whatever you want to do. But I will not be offering at this price ever again, and I will not be opening the doors to the Unstuck Project for at least until the spring. So this is your chance to get your hands on it, and then you can do it whenever you want. You can go back through it over and over again. Once it's yours forever. All right, that is it for this episode. I am so grateful for all of you. I'm so grateful to be able to connect with you and hear your stories and get really great episode topics from your stories. So again, like I mentioned, Shawn Mynar over on Instagram. Feel free to DM me. Take a screenshot of whatever episode you're listening to and send it to me. Let me know you're tuning in. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with your followers, wherever you think there are people in your life that need to get unstuck. I would be happy to have them here listening to the show. All right, everybody, until next time, take care.